The game just ended his own career, no exaggeration. In 72 hours, this man triggered a chain reaction so catastrophic that Kendrick Lamar's entire camp came out swinging. J-Rock, 2T's, Spider-Lock, they're all exposing him. And Kendrick, he hasn't said one word because he doesn't need to. The game is destroying himself. Everybody thought they knew the story. The game claimed he tried mentoring Kendrick back in the day, that he opened doors, that he was some kind of guiding force behind K-Doc's rise. That narrative floated around for years without serious pushback. But then Punch TDE resurfaced a 16-year-old track where Kendrick documented the exact opposite. The game rejected him, turned him away. And now, instead of taking the L quietly, the game went on his podcast and made everything infinitely worse. He attacked Kendrick's bodyguard, he made wild claims about being king of the West, he contradicted himself so many times that the internet started questioning his mental state. The whole narrative is twisting in real time. Let me break down exactly what happened, because this situation has layers within layers. After Punch endorsed that 2009 track, the game had options. He could have apologized, he could have stayed silent. Instead, he chose full scorched earth mode. Days ago, the game appeared on his Back on Fig podcast and unleashed a verbal assault that sent shockwaves through the entire hip-hop community. What came out of his mouth was so delusional, so desperate, so wildly contradictory that fans immediately started dissecting every single word. First target, 2T's, Kendrick's day one bodyguard, TDE's head of security, the man who called the game a liar directly to his face. The game viciously dismissed him on the podcast, claiming 2T's wasn't even around back then, that he doesn't know what conversations happened behind closed doors, that he's just clout chasing for Kendrick. The problem? 2T's has photo evidence from 2009. He's in tour footage, he's documented in the exact timeline the game is trying to rewrite. The internet's response was instant outrage. Fans started posting receipts showing 2T's was literally there. The game just declared war on someone who holds nuclear codes. Then the game tried explaining why he missed Kendrick's legendary pop-out concert in June 2024, the historic event where Bloods and Crips stood together on stage, where the entire West Coast unified under Kendrick's leadership. His excuse? He sat it out on purpose. Too much gang politics with him involved. Didn't want to ruin K-Doc's moment. But wait, in the same breath, the game said he could have ruined Kendrick's whole show just by showing up. Read that again. He claims he stayed away out of respect, but also claims his presence would have overshadowed the entire event. The logic doesn't connect. The truth social media uncovered? The game wasn't invited, period. While Dr. Dre, Schoolboy Q, Ab-Soul, J-Rock, Tyler the Creator, YG, Roddy Ricch, and every West Coast legend performed, the game's name was nowhere on that list. He's now spinning his exclusion as some noble sacrifice, but the receipts don't lie. Twitter detectives started posting side-by-side comparisons. Who was at the pop-out? Dr. Dre? Check. Schoolboy Q? Check. J-Rock? Check. Tyler the Creator? Check. YG? Check. The game? Nowhere. 3 red X marks. The narrative collapsed instantly. This wasn't humility. This was cope. This was a man trying to rewrite his rejection as his own decision, and the internet smelled blood immediately. According to Hot New Hip Hop, fans started creating timelines. They pulled up old interviews. They cross-referenced dates. They analyzed body language and old footage. Online detectives went full CSI mode, studying every detail like their lives depended on it. They examined who was photographed with Kendrick during the Section 80 era. They tracked tour schedules. They verified who was actually present during studio sessions. And everything pointed to one conclusion. The game is rewriting history, and the documentation proves it. Think about it. If the game really tried signing Kendrick, where's the paperwork? Where are the contract negotiations? Where are the studio sessions? Where are the photos of them working together? The absence of evidence became evidence itself. Meanwhile, Dr. Dre's mentorship of Kendrick is documented everywhere. Studio footage, interviews, album credits, public acknowledgments. The difference is night and day. And here's where it gets even crazier. Fans started pulling up old game interviews from 2008 and 2009. In multiple conversations, he never once mentioned Kendrick Lamar. Not as someone he was working with, not as someone he was trying to sign, not as someone on his radar. The first time the game started talking about Kendrick in a mentorship context was years later, after Kendrick had already blown up. That timing is suspicious as hell. It looks exactly like someone trying to attach themselves to a legend after the fact. Online investigators found interview clips where the game was asked about up-and-coming West Coast rappers during that exact era. He named other artists. He talked about his own projects. Kendrick's name never came up. Now, 16 years later, he's claiming he was trying to open doors. The timeline doesn't support his version of events at all. Now let's get into the motive, because this is where everything starts clicking into place. The game has been dealing with serious relevance issues for years now. His commercial peak was the documentary and Doctor's Advocate, both legitimately great albums that deserved respect, but that momentum didn't last. Think about it. This dude went from platinum plaques and mainstream visibility to dropping projects that barely chart. His last major cultural moment was when exactly? Most people would struggle to name it. Back in his peak, the game was pulling in serious money, touring constantly, getting major features, labels were investing. But now, his recent projects get minimal attention. The Drillmatic album dropped with barely any buzz. His Gangsta Grillz tape with DJ Drama just came out, and outside of this controversy, nobody's talking about it. Meanwhile, Kendrick Lamar is preparing for the Super Bowl halftime show. He just dropped a stadium tour with SZA that sold out instantly. He's at the absolute peak of his powers, culturally and commercially. That kind of disparity hits different when you're watching someone you were once compared to completely eclipse you.
And it gets worse for the game. His entire career survival strategy has been attaching himself to bigger names. With 50 Cent and G-Unit, he built his career on that cosign, then turned the beef into a 20-year relevance engine. He's mentioned 50 Cent more than his own discography. With Drake, he inserted himself into the Drake versus Meek Mill beef for pure attention. Nobody asked for his opinion, but he started throwing shots to generate headlines. With Tekashi 6ix9ine, he engaged during peak controversy era, knowing it would create cliques and chaos. With Eminem, he name-dropped him hundreds of times, positioning himself as a peer when Eminem barely acknowledges his existence. This pattern spans 2 decades. The game's playbook is predictable at this point. Attach yourself to legends, tell stories that inflate your importance, use their names when your own music can't carry you, rewrite history to make yourself look better, repeat until exposed. The difference this time? Kendrick documented the truth in real time. The game can't manipulate this narrative. The receipts are locked in forever on wax. Hip-hop historians started pulling receipts on the game's behavior going back to his G-Unit days. The man has a documented history of exaggerating his role in other people's success. He's claimed credit for things he had minimal involvement in. He's inserted himself into stories where witnesses say he wasn't even present. This isn't new behavior. This is a pattern that's finally catching up to him. Let's talk about what rejection does to ego. In 2009, the game had the opportunity to sign Kendrick Lamar. He had the chance to mentor the greatest rapper of this generation, and he fumbled it. He watched Dr. Dre swoop in and give Kendrick the cosign he denied. Then he watched Kendrick become everything he wanted to be. Critically acclaimed, commercially dominant, culturally untouchable, respected by every legend in the game, the undisputed king. Now, at 45 years old, with his own relevance fading into obscurity, the game is desperately rewriting history to avoid living with soul-crushing regret. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. When reality doesn't match your self-image, your brain creates false narratives to protect your ego. The game's brain cannot process the reality that he rejected Kendrick Lamar, so he keeps lying, keeps doubling down, keeps making it exponentially worse. The financial angle matters too. The game's reported net worth has fluctuated wildly over the years. There were periods where he was allegedly dealing with serious money issues, legal troubles, child support battles. Meanwhile, Kendrick signed a massive deal with Aftermath and Interscope. He secured generational wealth. He owns his masters. He's made strategic business moves that ensure his family is set for life. That disparity creates resentment, especially when you're the one who had first opportunity. And here's the part that really exposes the desperation. The game recently claimed on TMZ that he, not Kendrick Lamar, is the king of the West Coast. Let me repeat that. The man who just got exposed by a 16-year track is being called a liar by multiple TDE insiders, wasn't invited to the biggest West Coast event in history, and is watching his credibility disintegrate in real time, claims he's the king of the region Kendrick completely dominates. The cognitive dissonance required to make that statement is beyond human comprehension. Let's do a reality check. Kendrick's 2024 and 2025. Pulitzer Prize winner, only rapper ever, multiple Grammys including Album of the Year, Super Bowl 59 halftime show coming in February. Not Like Us became a global phenomenon. Pop-out concert unified the entire West Coast. Sold-out stadium tour with SZA coming. Universally acknowledged as the greatest rapper alive. The Game's 2024 and 2025 released a mixtape nobody's talking about, got exposed as a liar about Kendrick, wasn't invited to the pop-out, called out by everyone in TDE, spiraling into public humiliation, making delusional claims while Kendrick performs at the Super Bowl. The disparity is so extreme that people started genuinely questioning the Game's mental health. This wasn't just a bad take. This was a psychotic break from reality broadcasted to millions. Social media didn't just mock him. They started creating wellness check memes, side-by-side photos of Kendrick at the Super Bowl versus the Game on a podcast, comparison charts of their achievements, jokes about needing intervention. But here's the part that really hits different. The people getting caught up in the middle of all this chaos didn't ask for any of it. 2T's is a security professional who's been loyal to Kendrick and TDE for over 15 years. This man has protected one of the most important artists in hip-hop history. He's traveled the world, he's been there for every major milestone, and now he's getting publicly attacked on podcasts because he told the truth. That's somebody's livelihood, that's somebody's reputation, and he's dealing with disrespect over a situation where he was just doing his job and keeping the record straight. J-Rock is Kendrick's day one brother from Compton. These dudes came up together. They shared struggles, they built TDE from nothing into a legendary label. J-Rock has his own legacy as a respected West Coast artist, and now he's being dragged into drama because the Game can't accept reality. When J-Rock posted that GIF, it wasn't just shade, it was disappointment. You could feel the frustration. Like, why are we still dealing with this? Why is this man lying about our brother? Why can't he just let Kendrick exist in his greatness without trying to steal credit? The emotional toll this takes on people who are actually there is real. Imagine being 2T's, knowing you witnessed the truth firsthand, having photo evidence, having your entire timeline documented, and then watching someone publicly call you a liar on a podcast. That's disrespect on a level that goes beyond hip-hop beef. That's attacking someone's character and credibility for no reason other than ego protection. And think about Kendrick's position in all this. He's preparing for the Super Bowl, he's planning a massive stadium tour, he's at the pinnacle of his career, and he has to deal with someone spreading lies about their history together. Kendrick hasn't responded because he's too focused on greatness to waste energy on someone who's already defeated. But that doesn't mean the situation isn't frustrating. That doesn't mean it's not exhausting to watch someone lie about you repeatedly. The leaked footage of fans reacting to the Game's podcast shows genuine anger, not performative outrage, real frustration. Because hip-hop culture values authenticity and truth. When someone lies about their connection to a legend, it disrespects the culture itself. It disrespects everyone who actually put in work. It disrespects the documented history that people lived through. Fans aren't just defending Kendrick, they're defending the integrity of the culture. There's also something deeply sad about watching the Game self-destruct in real time. This is a man who made legitimately good music. The documentary is a classic. Doctor's Advocate has incredible moments. He's a talented rapper who had a real place in West Coast hip-hop history. But instead of being remembered for his contributions, he's going to be remembered as the man who lied about Kendrick Lamar and got obliterated by a 16-year-old track. That's tragic. His ego is destroying his legacy right in front of our eyes, and he can't stop himself. The emotional weight of this situation extends to everyone who respected the Game's music. Fans who grew up listening to him, people who defended him through previous controversies. They're watching someone they respected embarrass himself on a global scale. That disappointment is real. That sense of betrayal when someone you admired shows you who they really are, that hits different. Let's get back to the evidence, because there are even more layers that make this situation worse for the Game. After his podcast explosion, 2T's didn't back down. He escalated with nuclear force. According to Hot 97, Complex, and multiple hip-hop outlets, 2T's stood firm on every single accusation. The Game never tried to sign Kendrick. He's rewriting history for clout. I was there. He wasn't. Those statements hit like missiles because 2T's isn't speculating. He's not guessing. He is the living receipt. Here's what makes this absolutely lethal. 2T's is in 2009 tour footage. Check. He's in behind-the-scenes photos from that era. Check. He's documented in TDE's archive. Check. He was physically present during the exact timeline the game claims to remember. Check. When the game tried dismissing him as irrelevant, 2T's essentially responded with documentation that could end careers. The internet dubbed this the Battle of the Receipts, and the game showed up completely unarmed. Fans are now asking the obvious question. If 2T's has this much proof, what else is he sitting on? Some people are speculating that TDE has an entire archive of evidence ready to deploy if the game keeps lying. Others think 2T's is just the first wave of a coordinated exposure campaign. Either way, the game picked a fight with someone who holds all the cards, and he's getting destroyed in real time. Then, J-Rock's response amplified everything. According to Hot New Hip Hop, J-Rock didn't need paragraphs. He didn't need a diss track. He posted one GIF, someone making the most disrespectful, disgusted face imaginable. The universal expression for "you're embarrassing yourself and we're all watching you self-destruct." Why is this devastating? Because J-Rock doesn't engage with nonsense. He's TDE royalty. He was on stage at the pop-out. He's seen Kendrick's entire rise from the Compton streets to the Super Bowl. For him to publicly mock the game means TDE has officially declared war. This wasn't shade, this was an execution order, and the message was crystal clear. We're not even taking you seriously enough to dignify this with words. You're a joke. Hip-hop insiders are saying this is the most unified TDE has been since they annihilated Drake. They're circling the wagons, they're protecting their king, and the game is trapped in the crosshairs with nowhere to run. But wait, there's more. Spiderlock, a G-Unit affiliate and LA hip-hop insider who was actually around during the game's come-up, publicly invited the game to his platform. But the way he worded it sent chills through anyone paying attention. I remember some things that might be different from what you're saying. Let's have a conversation. That's not an invitation. That's a setup. That's a trap disguised as friendly dialogue. Spiderlock knows the LA scene inside and out. He was there during the G-Unit era. He witnessed the politics. He saw the dynamics. If he's suggesting the game's story has inconsistencies, he's sitting on ammunition ready to fire. The hip-hop community is now watching with bloodthirsty anticipation. If the game accepts, Spiderlock could expose more lies on camera. If the game refuses, he looks terrified of someone who knows the truth. It's a lose-lose situation either way. And then there's the mixtape angle that makes everything even messier. On December 6th, 2025, the game dropped Every Movie Needs a Trailer with DJ Drama. Fans immediately started dissecting lyrics for Kendrick disses. According to Hot New Hip Hop, there's a line that fans interpret as either a direct shot at Kendrick or the most poorly worded compliment in rap history that sounds like a diss. Then the game panicked. He rushed to social media twice to clarify he wasn't dissing Kendrick. "Y'all are tripping. I wasn't dissing Kendrick. Y'all reading too much into it." But nobody believes him. Not one person. The theory gaining traction is that the game recorded subliminals before Punch dropped the 2009 track, thinking he could sneak diss Kendrick without consequences. Then Punch unleashed the nuclear bomb, and the game started desperately backpedaling. Hip-hop detectives on Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter are now analyzing every bar on the mixtape, building timelines of when it was recorded versus when the track leaked, comparing his tone and energy to previous interviews, cross-referencing his contradictory statements. The game now has to defend every word he says about the West Coast because the culture assumes he's taking jealousy-fueled shots at Kendrick. And that's exactly what happens when you lose all credibility. Everything you say gets twisted because nobody trusts you anymore. The benefit of the doubt evaporates. People start questioning motives behind every statement. That's the price of lying. Once your word loses value, you can't buy it back.
Frame-by-frame analysts online are comparing the game's body language in recent interviews to his demeanor in older footage. They're noticing increased defensiveness, more rambling, more contradictions, more desperation in his voice. The internet is documenting his spiral in real time, creating psychological profiles that paint a picture of someone who cannot accept their place in hip-hop history. Now, this whole situation gets even crazier when you realize the game's history of inserting himself into other people's narratives. Let's talk about the 50 Cent saga, because it's the blueprint for everything we're seeing now. The game built his entire career on the G-Unit cosign. 50 Cent literally discovered him, signed him, put him on, gave him beats from Dr. Dre and Eminem. The documentary was a group effort. 50 was all over that album. And then the game turned that relationship into a 20-year publicity strategy. Even after they split, the game couldn't stop mentioning 50. Every interview, every album cycle, every podcast appearance, 50 Cent's name comes up. And it's always framed as if they're peers, as if they're on the same level, when in reality, 50's cultural impact dwarfs the game's by every metric. But the game needs that association. He needs people to remember him in connection with someone legendary, because his own legacy isn't strong enough to stand alone. The same thing happened with the Drake and Meek Mill beef. Remember that? The game inserted himself into a battle that had nothing to do with him. He started taking shots at Drake out of nowhere. Nobody asked for his opinion. Nobody needed his involvement. But he jumped in anyway, because controversy generates attention. And when your music isn't generating attention on its own, you find other ways to stay relevant. With Eminem, the pattern is even more obvious. The game has name-dropped Eminem literally hundreds of times across his career. He's talked about getting beats from him, he's compared himself to him, he's positioned himself as someone who belongs in that conversation. But Eminem barely acknowledges the game's existence. There's no reciprocal relationship there. It's one-sided. It's the game trying to borrow credibility from someone who's in a completely different stratosphere. And then there's the Tekashi 6ix9ine situation. When Tekashi was at peak controversy, getting attention for all the wrong reasons, who jumped into that mess? The game. He engaged with Tekashi publicly, knowing it would create headlines, knowing it would generate clicks. It didn't matter that the situation was toxic. It didn't matter that Tekashi's reputation was destroyed. The game saw an opportunity for attention and took it. All of these situations reveal the same pattern. When the game's own projects aren't generating enough buzz, he attaches himself to bigger stories. He inserts himself into other people's drama. He rewrites history to make himself seem more important than he actually was. And for years, he got away with it because most people weren't checking the receipts. Most people weren't digging into the timelines. Most people just accepted his version of events at face value. But the internet doesn't work like that anymore. Information is too accessible. Old interviews are archived, footage is preserved. Timelines can be reconstructed by fans with too much free time and investigative instincts. The game's playbook doesn't work in 2025 the way it worked in 2005. You can't just say things and expect people to believe you without proof. The culture demands receipts now, and if you don't have them, you get exposed. What makes this Kendrick situation particularly devastating for the game is that Kendrick documented the truth in real time. That 2009 track isn't hearsay, it's not speculation, it's Kendrick's first-hand account, recorded when the events were fresh, before anyone knew how legendary he would become. That track is a time capsule that preserves the truth in a way the game can't manipulate, and that's why he's spiraling, because there's no way to rewrite a narrative that's locked into a song that thousands of people have heard. Fans online are now going back through the game's entire discography, looking for other moments where he might have exaggerated or lied. They're cross-referencing his lyrics with documented history. They're comparing his claims to witness accounts. The game's entire legacy is being audited in real time by an army of internet detectives who smell blood in the water. And every inconsistency they find adds another crack to his credibility. Some people are even questioning whether the game's previous beefs were as authentic as they seemed. Were those real conflicts or manufactured drama designed to keep him relevant? Did he exaggerate his role in those situations too? Once you lose trust, everything you've ever said gets re-examined through a skeptical lens. That's the consequence of lying. You don't just damage your present reputation, you retroactively damage your entire history. What we're seeing here is bigger than just one rapper's meltdown. This situation exposes fundamental truths about ego, legacy, and the digital age's impact on credibility. The game's downfall is a case study in what happens when you build your career on borrowed credibility instead of authentic greatness, when you spend 20 years attaching yourself to legends rather than becoming one yourself. Eventually, the house of cards collapses. The broader conversation is about responsibility and truth in hip-hop culture. This genre was built on authenticity, on keeping it real, on documenting your lived experience without embellishment. When artists lie about their history, they don't just disrespect the people involved, they disrespect the entire culture. They disrespect everyone who actually lived through those moments. They undermine the historical record that future generations will study. Kendrick's silence in all of this is a masterclass in power dynamics. He hasn't said one single word, not one interview, not one tweet, not one Instagram story, not one subliminal bar. Complete silence. And he doesn't need to say anything because Punch handled it by endorsing the 2009 track. 2T's exposed the lies with receipts. J-Rock threw savage shade. The internet fact-checked everything. The Game is destroying himself with his own contradictions. Kendrick is preparing for his 2025 stadium tour with Caesar. He just secured the Super Bowl halftime show. He's at the absolute peak of his powers. Why would he waste energy on someone who's already defeated? That silence is louder than any diss track could ever be. It says, you're not worth my time. You're not on my level. You're not even a threat. You're nothing. And that silence is torturing the Game's ego more than any response ever could. Because the Game needs Kendrick to acknowledge him. He needs the engagement. He needs the attention. He needs to feel like he matters. And Kendrick is denying him even that. It's the ultimate flex, complete dominance through complete silence. The Game is screaming into the void, making increasingly desperate claims, attacking Kendrick's team, declaring himself king, and Kendrick is just existing at a higher level, not even looking down. This story also highlights how the internet has fundamentally changed celebrity accountability. 20 years ago, the Game could have told his version of events and most people would have accepted it. There was no easy way to fact check, no army of online detectives, no archived footage readily accessible. But in 2025, everything is documented, everything is searchable, everything can be cross-referenced and verified. The digital age has made lying exponentially more dangerous. You can't just say things anymore. You have to be able to back them up. Because if you can't, thousands of people with internet access and investigative skills will expose you within hours. The Game learned this lesson the hardest way possible. He thought he could rewrite history, and the internet said, not on our watch. What this means for other artists is simple. Document your truth, record your experiences in real time, build genuine relationships based on loyalty and mutual respect. Don't exaggerate your role in other people's success. Don't try to borrow credibility from legends. Build your own legacy on authentic greatness. Because if you don't, eventually the lies catch up. Eventually someone resurfaces the receipts, and eventually you end up like the Game, watching your entire reputation crumble in 72 hours. So, where does the Game go from here? That's the question everyone's asking, because this situation is far from over. In fact, it might just be beginning. There are unanswered questions that can make this exponentially worse. Will the Game accept Spiderlock's invitation? If he does, Spiderlock could expose more lies on camera. If he doesn't, he looks terrified of someone who knows the truth. Either way, he loses. Will more TDE insiders speak up? 2T's already doubled down. J-Rock threw shade. Who else from Kendrick's early days is waiting to drop bombs? Some fans theorize there are dozens of people who witnessed the Game's rejection of Kendrick, and they're just waiting for the right moment to speak. The floodgates might be about to open. Does Kendrick have more tracks in the vault? The 2009 track was on an obscure mixtape most people never heard. What else did Kendrick document? Some Reddit users are speculating Kendrick has an entire archive of unreleased tracks addressing fake mentors, industry snakes, and people who doubted him. Imagine if Kendrick drops a whole project of receipts. The internet would explode. Will the Game release an actual diss track? Some fans think he's desperate enough to try, but that would be career suicide. Kendrick demolished Drake, the biggest rapper alive with infinite resources and a global fan base. What would he do to the Game? It would be like watching a heavyweight champion fight an amateur. Brutal, swift, humiliating. Is TDE planning a coordinated exposure campaign? The timing of Punch's post, 2T's statements, and J-Rock's response feels too perfect to be random. Some insiders believe TDE is strategically destroying the Game's credibility piece by piece, letting him dig his own grave deeper with each response. Will Kendrick address this on his 2025 tour? The stadium tour with Caesar is coming. Will Kendrick bring out TDE members on stage to send a message? Imagine Kendrick performing in LA, bringing out Punch, 2T's, J-Rock, and the entire TDE crew while the game is watching from home. The ultimate public humiliation. There's only one path to redemption for the game, but his ego will never allow it. He would have to admit he lied fully, completely, no excuses, acknowledge Kendrick's greatness without trying to take credit, apologize to TDE, 2T's, and everyone he disrespected, stop talking about Kendrick and focus on his own legacy, accept his place as a good rapper who has success but wasn't the legend he wanted to be. If the game did those 5 things, the hip-hop community would respect the accountability. It wouldn't erase the damage, but it would show growth, maturity, humility. But he won't. He physically cannot. His ego is too big. His insecurity is too deep. His need for relevance is too all-consuming. So instead, we'll watch the game continue to spiral, more contradictory statements, more people exposing him, more credibility destroyed, more desperate claims, more public humiliation. Eventually, he'll be remembered not for the documentary or Doctor's Advocate, legitimately good albums that deserved respect. He'll be remembered as the man who lied about Kendrick and got obliterated by a 16-year-old track while the entire world watched him self-destruct. This story is still unfolding with way bigger implications than just one incident. The game thought this would blow over. It's getting worse by the hour. More people will speak up, the game will make more contradictory statements, Kendrick's 2025 tour is coming, the Super Bowl performance already proved who the real king is. The question isn't if the game's legacy will survive, the question is how much worse can it possibly get before he finally stops talking. And based on everything we've seen, he won't stop. His ego won't let him. His desperation won't let him. His inability to accept reality won't let him. So we'll keep watching, keep documenting, keep exposing the lies, because in hip-hop, the truth isn't optional, it's inevitable. And the game just learned the hardest lesson of his career. You can't rewrite history when Kendrick Lamar already documented it. The receipts are forever, the lies expire, and the culture never forgets. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Will the game ever admit the truth, or will his ego destroy him completely? Will Kendrick ever break his silence, or is that silence the ultimate victory? And who from TDE speaks up next? Hit that like button if this breakdown connected all the dots. Subscribe because this situation is evolving every single day, and the next bomb could drop any second. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update, because we're covering every twist that comes out. This is hip-hop history unfolding live. The game just guaranteed this war isn't ending anytime soon. The question isn't if more people will expose him, the question is who's next, and what dark secret will they reveal that makes everything we just learned look like child's play. Stay locked in, because if the last 72 hours taught us anything, this story is about to get so much worse it'll break the internet again. The truth always catches up, and when it does, there's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, and no amount of lying that can save you from the reckoning. I appreciate you for rocking with me. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. And remember, in this digital age, your legacy is only as strong as your ability to back up what you say. Peace.